All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Here's Johnny.
Vanity. Definitely my favorite sin.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
The power of Christ compels you!
This is my boomstick.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Good evening, and welcome to Shiver, a horror movie podcast. We are your hosts.
I'm Daniel DeBona.
And I'm David Ulloa. And we are back after a brief hiatus thanks to spring break.
Nice.
Yes, very nice, very necessary. And Daniel and I, after kind of kicking it old school with some slashers, had the idea to kind of bring it into the modern age. And we're starting that with the movie The Rule of Jenny Penn. So this is a Shudder original, which we kind of both, I think, organically stumbled upon this. I think our
I think so.
Kind of
Yeah,
pushed it in our direction. So let's talk a little bit about this movie. In an intro section, we're calling Golden Oldies. So I think for the first thing has to be what did the trailer do for you? Because I know the trailer was like really impactful for me. And then how was the movie for you?
Yeah, so this movie I hate to use the term because it seems ridiculous, because I mean it's kind of what the point of a trailer is, but I feel like there was a bait and switch here with this movie. I feel like that the trailer sold of this guy who had some sort of puppet that was possibly possessing him, possibly demonic, seemed to be some sort of evil entity. That was very much what the trailer sold for this movie,
right?
And what we ended up getting was not that at all, right? We end up with a really weird story about just a really shitty old dude. It was this movie was so strange. Like I was texting you through about halfway through, I was like, this movie's twisted. Like I couldn't wrap my head around whether it was good or whether it was bad. It was just it was a lot, and yet like nothing. It was a lot to take in, but not a lot was happening. This movie was very, very strange. I feel this is the type of movie that I feel like there was like the guy who wrote this, or the guy who wrote the short story that became this screenplay, seemed to have a very specific audience in mind for like who this was going to scare or how it was going to go. And there were moments in it that I found really impactful and kind of genuinely scary. But I feel like a lot of the time I was just kind of left sitting back trying to figure out like what the hell this whole thing was. Like what was all this? What was Jenny Penn? What was the point of this story, of this movie? I got confused is the wrong word, because like I always knew what was going on. I guess I was just confused as to the point of the existence of this movie at times. I don't know. It was very odd. It was unsettling. It was disturbing at times. But I don't know, man. This one was super weird.
That's kind of how I feel. And I thought about it like pretty much as soon as I was done with it. You were about an hour and a half ahead of me, I think.
Yeah, maybe like right at an hour. Yeah, I think I was halfway through as you were starting it.
I don't think this is a very good movie at all. Interestingly, I think that there's a lot of things to like that are happening in within the movie. I think the performances are outstanding,
Right.
and all of that is thanks to Jeffrey Rush and John Lithgow. Which, no surprise, I mean, these guys are some of the most legendary actors
Right.
of the modern age of cinema. So I was not let down by their performances. The social commentary I thought was on point. It was fantastic. However, none of that amounted to anything.
Right.
It kind of felt almost like The Innkeepers in that way. I was watching this thinking, but where's it going? Where's it going? When's the thing gonna happen?
When's the thing gonna happen? Yeah.
And the more the movie went on, the more I was hoping that the thing would finally happen. And sometimes, like, that thing doesn't happen until quite literally the last shot. Like,
Right.
the original Wicker Man, the thing doesn't happen until literally the last shot of the movie, and it's worth it. It's totally worth it. Nothing happens here. And more than nothing happening, I think that um there's introductions of ideas that never amount to anything, which for me, the most cardinal sin that a movie can make is to be boring. And I don't think this movie's boring.
Right.
I was kind of entertained the whole time. However, I've always talked about my litmus test for whether I think a movie is interesting or not is if I pick up my phone. And I was shopping for a lens for my camera the entire time, looking at
Fair.
different reviews, looking at different examples. I did settle on one. I bought
Oh,
it.
okay. Well, good.
Yeah, I needed an ultra wide angle, but that kind of tells me, like, hey, man, I when we rewatched Where Evil Lurks or When Evil Lurks, I can't remember
Yeah.
exactly what that one was called. On the rewatch, I never picked up my phone.
Right.
You know? So, to me, that was like, is it really that interesting? It's not boring, but is it interesting? Um, and then just this knowledge at the end that I was like, none of it mattered.
Right.
And none of the things paid off. The more time went on, the more I disliked the movie. And beyond that, I hated the look of the movie, which may or may not have been intentional. Um, I don't think it's a very pretty looking movie.
Right.
And again, that might be intentional.
I was about to say, now I could see, I viewed the way it looked because I did notice too that it looked odd, right? It wasn't pretty, but I do think that that was on purpose. Like if I'm gonna give some credit, like the whole point of this, or I don't know, one of the points of this movie seemed to be just like the idea of the elderly care system just
Mhm.
kind of being in shambles. So presenting a movie that looked like this, that did look odd and didn't, and it just kind of looked gross. That is kind of what it feels like being in a retirement home, right? Like it's got everything
Right.
kind of smells weird and like nothing is pretty, like nothing looks good. Even the rooms that are supposed to be like the uplifting ones are just kind of sad and drab.
Mm.
And so I feel like that part was on purpose.
I got that. I didn't like not the focal lengths because they went with like very, very wide angle lenses, really up close to kind of distort the way people looked. And I generally like that. Like that's something that Yorgos Lanthimos does a lot in his movies. I don't mind the distortion and the presenting of something as ugly. However, I think that the lens choices everything was like almost uncomfortably sharp,
Okay.
and the areas that were out of focus intentionally had very ugly out of focus rendering, which that goes back to like lenses and the way that a lens is designed, its optical design, like the way a lens is built, the way the glass is curved, all of that plays into that. I thought it looked ugly, and beyond that I thought the lighting was awful,
Okay.
like just
Fair.
absolutely terrible.
The lighting was bizarre.
And to me it didn't look like they were trying to cheat like bad retirement home lighting. To me, it's not what it looked like. It looked like it was poorly lit,
Okay.
especially when you go at the end of the movie to like the weird reds and the greens and stuff. Like that was the other thing, is there was no consistency with the lighting. It's not like every time that Jenny Penn appeared, there was this red light that came. Sometimes it was there, sometimes it wasn't.
Right.
And then when it was there, I don't think it was done well. It almost seemed like it was like a senior thesis for a film school project.
Okay. Yeah. I
It
mean,
was
look.
it wasn't awful. It wasn't terrible. I didn't like it. The more I thought about this movie, the more I was like, the only thing that I'm gonna be able to say in its favor is that the performances were really, really great, and I agree with the social commentary.
Okay, well, let's get, we're in the shit now, right? Let's shovel it. Like, let's get to a section that we're calling story. I mean, so this movie's an hour and 42 minutes long. Some stuff happened, but I mean, did they tell a story worth watching? Was there anything impactful for you about what they were trying to get across with this?
This was an hour 40?
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah. Hour 42, I believe, is the official. Oh, well, wait, no, I'm sorry. It was 104 minutes. Never mind. So yeah. Oh yeah, 104 minutes. It's an hour 40. Yeah, hour 40.
Wow. Dude. I thought it was like 2 hours long. It felt so long to me. I love the way they start this out. As you know, with Jeffrey Rush as like this no nonsense lawyer. That scene is fantastic. Him trying to keep it together. We know that he's having a stroke because we kind of know where this movie goes.
Right.
If you've seen the trailer, and he's elderly, you know, he ends up in a retirement home. That's the way it's going. I love that opening scene. Almost immediately the story starts to shift. I think the story loses its footing from the very beginning because they introduce this cat in the very next scene.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, this guy in the wheelchair is talking about how the cat is this bad omen. It's, you know, it always brings death. And here's the cat looking at this guy, and he's just talking about it, not realizing that here's this cat. He lights himself on fire because of course he does.
Right. I mean, it's how I want to go. I mean, whiskey in hand, cigarette in the mouth. It's, you know.
There are worse ways to go. We literally don't see the cat again until, I don't know, it felt like an hour.
Yeah.
And the cat does appear just before the next person dies, but the cat doesn't bring his death.
Right.
Jenny Penn specifically stops someone from, or not Jenny Penn, as we come to find out, it's just Lithgow.
Yeah, it's just
right?
it's just Dave.
And Lithgow just doesn't report that he's seen someone in trouble. So how did the cat bring death to the guy who burned himself, Lithgow wasn't involved in that either. It's one of the many things that don't amount to anything in this movie. Lithgow's impetus, his modus operandi, also doesn't make any sense either. There's no rhyme or reason for why he does what he does, which, if there is a some men just want to watch the world burn sort of like Joker mentality happening here, you need to establish that.
Right.
And there seems to be some sort of agenda with certain people that he rules with this iron fist. Like, why is he so attached to this place? What was it that happened to him that he does whatever he wants? And that's the other thing, the whole concept behind everyone knows what this guy does and no one stops it. What power does he have over these people? Never addressed.
Yeah.
What secrets does he know? Never addressed. Him just working at this place since the dawn of time doesn't mean anything.
Right.
In fact, it almost seems forced. Once you stop and you're like, okay, but so what was the point? Well, the point was it was a plot point.
Yeah.
That's all it was. It was something for Jeffrey Rush to discover. And more than that, I think the more egregious use of story for the sake of story is that he ended up seeing Jeffrey Rush one time, and he was commanding a room.
It changed his life.
He sees this photograph when he breaks into the room, which was, I thought, a great moment. The pushing, the taking the inhaler and just getting all the medicine out of it. Fucking awesome. Great. But he sees this photograph in there and it's dated, presumably when Lithgow saw him, but there's zero connection. There's zero connection that's made there at that time. So I don't understand what anything in this movie amounts to. There is zero reason for anything. There is zero explanation why we should care about anything. Can you not hear me? You can't hear me? Daniel's saying he can't hear me. Let's see. Let me try to unmute his mic. Can't unmute your guests because they chose to mute themselves. Okay. All right, so I'm going to keep talking while Daniel figures out what's going on. Story points to me that seem forced end up destroying a story. And I haven't read the short story. I don't know how long the short story is. You're back. Fantastic. So I was just talking about how story points that feel forced end up destroying movies. It could be one little thing that doesn't matter too much, but when you have too many of them that occur, like the cat, like the meeting many years ago that only one of them seems to care about, why he's killing certain people, there's all of these forced points. In the end, what I end up feeling like is I've wasted my time.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm of two minds kind of about what was presented to us here as a story, right? So let me start with the positive side. There is something to be said here about, seeing a movie that, like I said at the top, kind of presents this idea of how the system of elderly care is kind of in shambles and shit like this can be allowed to happen. There are some moments in this that hit really hard, as we've discussed in the past. So we both had, our grandfathers kind of fell apart there at the end. There's one scene where he's doing what is I didn't realize it was like a well-known dementia test where they have you draw a clock. And they show from Jeffrey Rush's perspective, he draws it and he sees himself drawing it perfectly. And then they cut to what it actually looks like, right? And you're like, okay, so this guy is in the throes of dementia. This stroke has done irreparable damage to his brain. And then you start to get those, they call them blips, he starts to get those blips and some of that stuff, that stuff did kind of hit, right? And I'm watching that stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, this is scary. Like, let's explore this, because what could make this scary is just the idea of dementia. When we go back, what was it? Taking of Deborah Logan, right? Was so fucking scary because they explored that and they explored it really well. So I had that stuff where it was like, okay, so because they mentioned earlier where he said, there's not many places taking new patients, especially not ones at a price point that I can afford. So, you've got this social commentary kind of on the state of elderly care and what we're doing to take care of the last of the greatest generation or whatever. So you've got that. And that's unsettling, right? It's disturbing. And so you can attach the word scary to that and not be wrong. But the problem is there's another part of this movie that in a very different way reminded me of a movie that I caught last October called I Saw the TV Glow, which if you have seen I Saw the TV Glow, then you probably either didn't understand it or you loved it. That seems to be the two camps because it was made for a very specific audience. And I feel like that other half of this movie was made for this very specific audience that is older and has had trouble with bullies, right? Because it's not even just like specifically about bullying, because if you're some 14-year-old who kind of takes solace in watching a good horror movie, you're not going to watch this and be like, oh man, that's just like me. So it's this really weird sect that they seem to be trying to tap into with this movie of old people who are being bullied by other old people, which I'm sure is real. I doubt it's, an epidemic, but I'm sure it's definitely something that happens. But the way that they approached bullying, if that's what was supposed to be some sort of social commentary here, was done in a way that it was unapproachable. And if you're going to make a social commentary, if you're going to make some sort of societal comment while making a movie, it needs to be approachable. And when you look at a movie like this, I feel like the audience that it's going to draw is going to be very different than the people who might relate to what it is that you're doing here. See, whereas the other side of that coin is I Saw the TV Glow was, if you are not a cis, like a cis hetero dude, and you're like into horror movies, this is like the perfect thing. They're reaching into the right idea of, these people, the people who that this is applicable to are going to watch this. I feel like what a lot of the tension that they wanted to build, a lot of the horror, if you will, came from something that's only slightly relatable. Like, yeah, I've been bullied before, but not because I'm approaching invalidity and can't fight back. Because that is the other thing, right? Like, the whole point of this seems to be everybody that we see him messing with, he very much like a bully picks people who can't fight back. There's, the Maori guy who doesn't seem to be able to do much physically. And then there's Jeffrey Rush, who is in a wheelchair, can't really walk without his cane. And so there's a bullying message here, but it's presented in this unapproachable way. And I don't understand that. I mean, I get if you're just trying to prove if you're just trying to prove that this is something that happens all over, or maybe something. I don't know. I just found myself.
You need to back that up with other story elements that support that, though.
Yeah.
And that's what this lacks is support. Because there seems to be a pushing of a supernatural storyline here that never really materializes, whether it's
Yeah.
the cat or Jenny Penn,
There was
the
there was
doll
one
itself.
there was one scene. There was one scene where you see Jenny's hands just kind of manipulating this guy's mouth, and we see him do it later to Jeffrey Rush, like he's trying to make him smile. But you just see Jenny's hands, and then a little bit later, you see John Lithgow walk into that room, and it's like, wait a minute. So was he not in there? Like, is there something to Jenny being supernatural? But then, like the cat, it's dropped faster than it was even picked up in that moment.
Yeah, and there's instances where like Jenny scowls, where eyeballs appear in the eye sockets of the doll, and it never amounts to anything. There's never an explanation given about what exactly is going on. Why is Lithgow obsessed with this doll?
Right.
He otherwise seems to be a neuronormative person. He's just an asshole. Like
Yeah.
there's not really I couldn't point to any sort of thing that he's got. He's just an asshole.
Yeah, he just seems to be a guy who got older and had worked at this place, and now this is just where he's choosing to live out his days and torture people. I just I found myself every time I started to, like I said, like I text you, it's twisted. It's so bizarre. But I found myself every time I was starting to kind of get invested in some sort of plot point that they were attempting to give me, that I just felt like that same plot point got fumbled before I could get involved. You know,
Yeah.
they introduced this idea of the fact that he's having these blips, and you could have done some really great things with that would have made me question whether or not, you know, Dave is some sort of weird supernatural entity, and that's why nobody is questioning what he's doing. But instead, you didn't. You just had him just like show up and eat, you know, or
Right.
and it was just, and so there's the one part of me that's like, well, maybe that's creepier that he's just like a normal dude, and that's fine if ultimately I had made the decision for myself that he's just a creepy normal dude. But I feel like there were just a lot of missed
But
opportunities.
then why are we
here.
watching?
Right. I feel like there were a lot of missed opportunities here to at least make me question that, and not just have me sit there and be like, well, yeah, obviously he's just a cantankerous dickhead.
Yeah.
Right. It was for everything that this movie did right and created tense moments, there were an equal or greater number of times when I feel like an opportunity was missed.
Mhm.
And I'm just kind of baffled by this movie, just in general. I wonder kind of why it's like garnered the praise it has, while also being like, okay, well, if people are only looking at this as like a two-man show and they're fully invested in just the performances these guys are given, and you're okay with that being the whole movie. I think that part of the reason that we're looking at this through a very different lens is, you know, this is what we do all the time, is we look at horror movies and we're trying to find these things that set it apart, that make it different or make it feel familiar in a good way. And this movie just, it was wholly uncomfortable from the time he showed up at the retirement home, and we get the weird stilted conversation with him and Boozy McFlamerson, and until the end.
That's so weird. I was gonna call him Flamey McBoozerson.
Until the end, when we just get this, what is maybe supposed to be a cathartic moment of Jenny Penn just melting in the fire pit, but there was no catharsis there, right? Because I was never like fully invested in Jenny Penn being some evil dictator that ruled over this retirement home. There was There was no
It meant nothing.
Yeah, there was no feeling of relief in seeing her finally go down. Like, yeah, it was kind of cool to see Dave get his comeuppance, but at the same time, like, I don't know, it was kind of underwhelming, right? It was so bizarre, the weirdness that I felt throughout this movie. And I stand by the fact that it is twisted. Look, it's a weird and sick thing to make somebody lick your wrist and call it your puppet's asshole, right? That's a super twisted thing. Storyline wise, did it mean anything? No. Like it.
Well, I think there's an important distinction to be made there, because it is akin to torture porn or gore porn, right?
Yes.
There is no difference between with zero gore, what happens in this movie and what happens in Hostel.
Oh my God, you're right. This movie is
it's
got
torture.
those same feels.
It's psychological torture, emotional torture for the sake of the torture. I don't know. Like, oftentimes we'll have a movie like this where there's an issue with the movie, and we'll have suggestions for how it could have gone differently. And I realize that I am not the writer of the movie. I'm not the director of the movie. I am no one. But sometimes there's very obvious fixes for issues that movies have.
Right.
I don't know what the fix to this thing is.
Yeah.
I can't think of one. I don't know if the fix is to make it shorter and make it solely about the showdown between these two old men in a retirement home. I don't know if the way to fix this is to make it longer and flesh out Lithgow's story. I don't know if the way to fix this is to make it a stage play and really get into this like this character piece, right? This really is, it's two character studies with an optional third character study that I think is the only story that has actual narrative validity, because there is no story arc for Jeffrey Rush. There's no story arc for John Lithgow. There is, however, a story arc for the roommate, for
Tony Garfield.
The guy,
Tony Gunnar Garfield.
And the only moment in the movie where I was like, damn, that was good, was his moment when he does the haka.
Yeah.
Wow, that was moving. That was very moving. But then the movie moves on.
Yeah.
And I'm left like, no. Let's do the haka again. Let's do something. And hakas are great. It's very easy to get into a haka, but also knowing that this guy hadn't fought back for so long, and then knowing the reason why. That's how you write a story. You slowly peel back the layers until you get to the core. He's the only person that has a story. He's the only person with a core. Everyone else is meaningless, except for the fact that the performances behind them are so damn good.
Yeah, it's so strange, because you brought it up earlier, where we get this kernel of an idea of there's going to be some sort of story that develops about Dave, John Lithgow's past, when we see that, he was working there, in the 60s or whatever. And we get those, those real creepy Shining-esque pictures.
It was very Shining.
Where he's, he's in there as he keeps going back, and you're like, okay, so let's find out, what does he know about this place? Like, why is he allowed to rule like he does? And then, like so many things, it's a stairway to nowhere. You just get to the top, and you're like, well, here I am. Thanks.
Would it not be in a place where I have to imagine everything is a liability, where there have to be wellness checks and you have to have all sorts of certifications and licenses? Why would this place risk it for this guy?
Right. And again, if that's the commentary, is on the crumbling state of elderly care in New Zealand, then I need some sort of story arc involving the management other than them just showing up occasionally to accuse Jeffrey Rush of stealing stuff. Other than to just give us a quick rundown of the fact that his cognition test went poorly. Like I need something else, that's some behind the scenes. If that's the commentary that you're going for, I need something else to happen that explains to me, why is this place corrupt? Is his family, did his family fund it, build it? Like, give me something. We talk all the time about, we don't want exposition for exposition's sake, but we need exposition here if so much of this is supposed to make any sense.
Yeah. Like you don't want to put too much salt, but you should use a little bit of salt.
Yeah.
Because there's no going back from too much salt. But if you under salt,
and we talked about that lighting, and something that was just way too on the fucking nose about this movie is, why is there one red light bulb in this place and it's right above Dave's door? Like, I mean, like, I get the mood, I guess, that you were trying to set with it, but it just came off as hacky. Like, it was just,
if you use it effectively and you use it thematically, then it makes sense. But if you only use it every now and then, it loses all of its meaning.
Yeah. And so it just kind of came off as like, there was just this one guy who was like, man, it'd be cool. What if like his door was red, right? Because he sucks and he's the devil or whatever. Like, I don't know. Is he the devil? Fuck, I don't know. I can't figure this shit out. And it bothers me because I want to like this movie. I wanted to like it the entire time that we were watching it, because of what we're going to get into in just a second, because these three actors really just dominated their time on screen. Unfortunately, they were just kind of given this cobbled together mess. There's something really interesting that you mentioned, which is the answer to make this thing a stage play. Holy shit, man. Could you imagine how uncomfortable it would be to be watching this like live? Like there's
a totally different energy.
Yeah, like now, and that might be the energy they were going for. I'm super envious of the fact that you thought of that, because that did not cross my mind. But now that I'm thinking of that, I'm like, now that's how you make this. That's how you make this scary, and that's how the feeling of just being unsettled really kind of just it closes you in. If you feel like you're in the room with these people and you're just a bystander who can't do anything, which I had moments in the movie where I felt like that was what was supposed to be scary, was that they were trying to give me this voyeuristic look into it, and I was supposed to be uncomfortable because I desperately wanted to do something. But they couldn't hang on to it, man. They couldn't keep me engaged in whatever the tension was supposed to be at that moment. And ultimately, that's where this thing falters, is its inability to keep me wondering what was going to happen next. I reached a point where I genuinely didn't care what happened next, storyline wise. I genuinely didn't. I wasn't wishing that it would end. I wouldn't go that far, but I was never super invested. Like, oh my God, like, where do we go from here? He led that woman to her death. Right? Just random woman who thinks her family's always about to get her right after the Christmas holiday. He leads her off to her death. We get this one really good moment where it's like, oh shit, he is super cognizant. The doll is just a facade, because he realizes, I've got to go get my key back, or that ties me to this. But then again, that goes nowhere. That goes absolutely nowhere. Jeffrey Rush has the one moment to be like, yep, you'd have to be as tall as me to reach this thing, and she wasn't. And then it goes nowhere. You get this one kind of hectic scene where he halfway confronts John Lithgow about it, while John Lithgow is also singing the weird Jenny Penn song, and Jeffrey Rush's voice is also reciting like The Old Man in the Sea or some shit. And it's like, the moments that were supposed to be chaotic to add to the tension just broke it because they were done poorly. And I really, it's one of those things we always say on here, we hate to kind of tear somebody down. I mean, this guy James Ashcroft, he doesn't even have a wiki page. The guy who co-wrote this and directed it.
Does he
So
not?
no. So I don't know if this is his debut, if it was just like a one-shot thing he wanted to try to do. But ultimately this thing just kind of fell flat, and I'm just glad that whoever he is, he was able to get the people associated with it that he was. So speaking of those people, I mean, we've spent this time talking about what's wrong with the movie. Let's get into what's right in a section that we just have to rightfully call Legends of Cinema. I mean, it's a 2-man show. It's 2.5-man show, right?
Yeah.
So you just pick which one you want to start with, and let's go there.
So I think I'm going to start with Lithgow. Because for me, I have been obsessed with John Lithgow, I think, my entire life.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Going all the way back to, for me, it starts with The Twilight Zone, the movie.
Yeah.
That segment of, what's it called? Terror at 20,000 feet.
Yeah.
Holy fuck, dude. And you know that I am a William Shatner super fan. I am the biggest fan of the original Twilight Zone, but that segment is better than the original Twilight Zone segment. It is, and his performance is just outstanding. And I remember seeing it for the first time and being scared out of my mind by the gremlin, but also by him.
Right.
And as time went on and I got to know him in Third Rock from the Sun.
Yes, Third Rock from the Sun is where it started for me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So that was like a totally different Lithgow. I almost forgot that he had been in that Twilight Zone movie, had it not been for the fact that it had such a lasting impact on me. Like, had it not been for that, I very easily could have forgotten that he had scared me ever, because he was so damn funny. For me, the other really big kind of like tent pole for me with him was Dexter. That 4th season of Dexter.
Oh, when he was the Trinity Killer.
The Trinity Killer. Wow. Absolutely chilling. And coming back to me was all of that stuff that scared me in the Twilight Zone movie. So when I saw this, because I wouldn't necessarily call him a like a horror guy, although he's obviously done horror. I typically think of him more comedically, but as soon as I saw the trailer for this, the trailer could have been as bad as I think the movie actually is, and I still would have wanted to watch it.
Right.
Because he is just so good at everything, and his performance here is one half of the reason why I think I'm even talking about this at all. Because I remember finishing this movie last night and thinking, I don't want to talk about this movie. I really don't like this movie. But his performance is worth talking about. Because you keep using the term twisted. That's exactly what it is. It's sadistic, it's twisted, it's evil. If the director of the movie came out today and said, yes, he was possessed by Jenny Penn, I would say, yeah, I believe it.
Right.
There was a demon in him. And if he came out and said, no, he's just a sick, twisted individual, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I totally get that. His performance is so good that whatever the motivation behind it is, works. He knows what the motivation is. I wish that we as the audience would have been able to know the motivation. That's not on him. And I almost wonder, because he and Jeffrey Rush both signed on for this movie, I wonder if there's a different version of this movie that's sitting on the cutting room floor.
Right. If there's something that we're missing there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, my with Lithgow for me, it kind of starts with Third Rock from the Sun, and then I eventually and I just kind of knew him as that dude. And then
Mhm.
I found out other stuff, then I eventually and then I saw Harry and the Hendersons.
Oh, what a
yeah.
great movie.
There's a huge one, right? Harry and the Hendersons. And then you get into dramatic roles. He's fucking amazing in Ricochet.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean,
The
I
World
remember,
According to Garp.
yeah, like I remember when we both kind of stumbled across this and we were talking about it. It was just like, man, it's got John Lithgow and Jeffrey Rush, right? Like we're both in,
Yeah.
and so he did a really great job in delivering. And this is gonna sound harsh, but whatever. Sometimes we're just harsh on this movie. There's a phrase. There's a saying here that I think perfectly describes what Lithgow and Jeffrey Rush managed to pull off from this movie, and it is they made chicken salad from chicken shit.
Yep.
Right? I think that what they were given was a subpar story and script, and their ability to be powerhouse actors made this something that I finished because he was again he was scary. Those moments that he had of clarity, whether or not the ones that were not clear, even if the ones that weren't clear were a show, then the moments we had of the real him, like when he engages the lady that he eventually sets free and she goes off and dies, and he's just like, you've been here 2.5 years, you fucking idiot. But then he immediately turns it back on. He's like, oh no, your family's here. That range of just being so flat with it and just talking to this person because she's less than, because he's there for whatever reason. She's there because she has lost her mind.
Mhm.
And so she's less than, but then his ability to then turn it back on to tempt this woman into leaving just because, wants to see the world burn because he's some sort of sadist or whatever. That shit that he did, that was the scariest thing. John Lithgow's performance as Dave Crearley here is really the only thing about this movie that's scary. If there were other things that were supposed to be scary, they were missed on me or fell flat because it just didn't work. But what he did to be scary, man, just the look on his face, just the way that he contorted his face when he would do the Jenny Penn voice or when he would be interacting with these other people, the way that he moved when he was just, dancing with Jenny and kind of just knocking everybody off the dance floor compared to the really bizarre and hectic dance he did to the Jenny Penn song when he realized that Jeffrey Rush had been in his room. Like, yeah, that shit was scary. But that was not, and this seems like a really weird distinction as I'm about to say it out loud. That wasn't the movie being scary. That was just John Lithgow being scary. That was John Lithgow acting so fucking well that it didn't matter. If John Lithgow were in my living room doing that dance without all the ambiance of a retirement home and a bunch of, senile people, demented old people, it would still be scary because that was just terrifying. If you can remove him from the movie and it's still scary, then that's not the movie. That's just his performance. And his performance was very scary. Like to the point that there were moments where it was uncomfortable. Like, Lithgow seems to be enjoying this too much. Like it was truly bizarre. It was so strange to see him in that and then be like, oh man, and now he's going to punch the Bigfoot and say, can't you see we don't want you anymore? And I'm going to cry. So, dude, going back to the Rush 4 days, like that's a short list candidate for like most heartbreaking moments in movies.
Yeah.
When he punches Harry, like that shit. I'm in my 40s now, and I just recently rewatched that movie when my son I bought my son this book that was like, cryptids of the United States. And we were reading about Bigfoot. And then he was like, that's kind of scary. I was like, you want to watch a movie where it's funny? And we watched Harry and the Hendersons, still cried. Anyway, so the other, like I said, 2.5 man show, right? So we got to talk Jeffrey Rush.
Yes.
And for everything that John Lithgow did to sell his performance as being horrifying, having the foil of Jeffrey Rush slowly losing the battle with dementia and therefore losing his battle with this bully was equally heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
A man who, when we first get him, the first scene of that movie is Jeffrey Rush whipping it out and putting it on his fucking barrister or judge bench, whatever it was, right? He's sitting there and leans into this guy, where apparently the New Zealand legal system apparently kind of lenient. They were like 8 counts of this ridiculously heinous crime against a child. You're going to jail for 16 years, buddy. I don't know. I don't know anything about the New Zealand legal system, but I mean, and then immediately just goes at what the kid's mom, right? And I'm like, oh man, okay, so this movie's gonna be this guy big dicking against a bully, right? And so you end up with this really heartbreaking performance of watching a man crumble. We talk all the time about watching a movie that's scary because it has this descent into madness. This was, but ultimately a lot of times it's something you could fight. What we end up watching with him is horrifying in the fact that you can't fight time, right? We're all gonna die the hero or live long enough to be the villain, right? You're gonna die young or you're gonna lose to time. There's no in between. Mm-hmm. And what we're watching is this man who, in the 6-7 minutes of the opening scene of this movie, this guy's a big deal. Yeah. This guy, he handles business. And then we learn ultimately what beats us all. Time beats us all, man. And his own brain gives out. And so on top of that, this is a man who's delivered justice his entire life as this judge. And now he physically, mentally can't do anything to stop this person bullying one of the weakest sects of American society in our elderly, especially our elderly that have been put into homes because they can't take care of themselves. And so it's heartbreaking. It's as equally heartbreaking, the performance that Jeffrey Rush gives us, as it is terrifying, the performance that Lithgow gives us.
I loved this performance. And it was difficult to watch for the reason you talked about earlier. We both had grandfathers who succumbed to dementia. And the moment that he tells, what was his name? Boozy McFirestarter?
Yeah. Boozy Boozy
McFlamerson.
Yeah. You're talking about Sir Boozin of McFlame Tits.
Oh man. Jeez. That was good. The moment he starts telling him, like, I'm only here temporarily. It's like, oh fuck,
yeah,
dude.
Don't
do this to me.
Just the worst thing you could ever say. Oh, I'm only staying in this haunted hotel for 2 nights.
Yeah, but it's that sort of like, he has this really positive attitude that he's going to work hard enough that he's going to get out of here.
Right, because that's what he's always known.
And we know it's not going to happen. We know it's not going to happen. It never works out that way. So it's so sad to see this happen because he hasn't accepted his fate. And the movie is too sad if he does accept his fate. So it needs to work that way.
Right.
He needs to fight back against his fate and this oppressor, because otherwise there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. And with it inspires the Maori dude to get up and fight too.
Yeah.
So there is there is a beauty in that, and everything in him is someone who, should I ever be in that situation, I hope I can be like that. I hope I can be a fighter like that, where I won't give in. And it doesn't matter how little time I have left, I'll always have my dignity and I'll always have my self-respect. Um, he reminded me a lot of my grandfather in the way that he played this role, the way that he was indignant, the way that he swore up and down this is exactly what happened. And yet we know it's not what happened. The thing with the clock that you mentioned, that was a really, really touching scene.
Yeah.
I loved it. And he's an actor who, like Lithgow, I've spent a lot of time really loving his work, beyond the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, which he's fantastic.
Oh my
in.
God. Yes.
I don't know how many times I've used that, they be more like guidelines, really, line in my life. Whether it's at work, whether it's with friends, whether it's with my kids, like, it doesn't matter. They be more like guidelines, really. Fuck, what an awesome line, and what a great character. I mean, that is the Captain Jack Sparrow series, but if it belongs to anyone else, it is Jeffrey Rush.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's fantastic in those movies, but shit, man, Shakespeare in Love. He is not William Shakespeare, but he's got a fantastic role in that movie. Did you ever see The Tailor of Panama?
No, never seen that one.
What an amazing spy thriller with Pierce Brosnan, no less. And it's not the James Bond kind of spy. It's a very down to earth, gritty spy movie. And he plays not the main spy, but like the handler. And
Okay.
fuck, so good. I think the first movie I saw him in was actually Les Miserables. I don't know if you ever saw that
he
version
was
of Les Miserables.
he was the inspector.
He was Javert, yeah.
Javert.
And he fucking kills it as Javert in that movie. He is so damn good at everything, literally everything that I have seen him in. He is just outstanding. And so when I saw that it was not just Lithgow, but it was Jeffrey Rush, like, fuck, I gotta see this. And I didn't know who was gonna be the bad guy in the movie. That's the thing that the trailer did so well. So it's like, here are these two guys who throughout their entire career have been these amazing character actors, and they can do it all. We're gonna put them together in this movie, and we're just gonna let them go wild. And that's exactly what they did, except they forgot to make the movie.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, again, texting you during, I was like, man, I hope these two make 100 more movies together, because they sold what was given here. It just, man, I wish that they be, because look, we spent the first 30 minutes of this just absolutely destroying the little bit of story that we've given here, and now we're sitting here just singing the praises of these guys. Imagine if they've been given a good movie to to make, right?
At all.
Imagine if there was a movie and not just a director who was like, all right, so you're crazy and there's a doll on your hand, you're
licking that doll's asshole.
Yeah, you're slipping away into nothing, but you're gonna fight back and go, boys.
Yeah. You don't even have to go so far as to imagine that they were given a good movie. Just go so far as to imagine that they were given a mediocre movie.
Right.
And all of a sudden, this is like 10 times better than what we got. But yeah, it is a shame. I would love to see a round 2 between Lithgow and Rush, and have them, and I want to see them go toe to toe again, because this was fantastic the way that this happened. Change it up, don't change it up. Have Lithgow be the bad guy, have him be the good guy, and then later have them partner up and let it be like an Odd Couple story, where
there we go.
it's the two of them chasing ghosts in a retirement home. I don't fucking care. Give me more of these two guys together. They're fucking legends. And throw in shit. I want to stop calling him the Maori dude. George Henry.
Or Henry, yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah, throw him in there too, because he was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
He was great. And have him be whoever you want in that movie. Redo Charlie's Angels with those three, and I am in. I am there.
Yeah, I mean, Gunnar was great. Gunnar Garfield. Because you're right, he's the one guy who got some sort of cognizant arc that had a beginning, middle, and end. And so he for his limited time, he was vital to the story in making you see that Rush's what most of the time seemed like futile efforts to fight back did affect somebody. Right? He did make a difference. He did make this place better even before they killed off Dave. So he was vital to making Jeffrey Rush's role not just seem like, sound and fury, ultimately signifying nothing. Right? He was vital to the fact that we had to see that what he did was worthwhile. And so, and he really did give just this great performance, man, from when it started to where he's the first person that we really see get tortured by Jenny Penn and Dave, to ultimately being one of the two that end his reign of terror. So he got a very good arc, and you're right. Like, throw him in there too. Let's flesh out his spot a little bit better. Let's give him some more. Let's give him some more lines, because I went and looked the guy up. Apparently, he's very famous in New Zealand. He's been doing this for like 50 years in New Zealand. Yeah. He's been making movies and he's been on stage, and so let's rope him back in too, because ultimately those three guys are what this movie's about. The lack of story, the incoherent, ideals that go nowhere. Those things don't matter, but these three guys do, and it did save what could have ultimately been just one of the bigger dumpster fires that we've ever done on this show.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the end, I don't know that I regret watching this one solely because of their performances. There are movies that I've thought have been so bad, I was like, I wish I hadn't done that one.
Right.
Or I wish that we weren't doing this one on the show. I wish I had just like seen it on Amazon Prime or something. And I'm like, oh, that looks interesting, because then I could just turn it off. But if I got to talk about the movie, I got to watch the movie all the way through. I don't
looking at you, the pack.
God, that was a turd. That was terrible. Where was the pact?
Where was
there pact? Was no pact.
So there you have. I mean, there's time. That's it. We've been at this thing for an hour. That's really all we can talk about. And honestly, we got an hour out of it, and I don't know that it deserved it. So it's time for us to rate this thing. If you're new to the show or you just need a quick reminder, we do not rate a movie against other movies. We've referenced some of these guys' other performances. We've talked about, things that it kind of drew some similarities to, but we're not comparing the rule of Jenny Penn to anything except for the rule of Jenny Penn. So in order to do that effectively, we create a unique rating system for every movie that we do. And if there's one movie that took this beyond, if there's one point in this movie that took this beyond the psychological torture porn element of it, which, by the way, just a perfect idea there in what this movie did. Mm-hmm. Into the realm of physical pain. And the one time that my roommate heard me yelling across the house as we watch this, there's a moment in this where John Lithgow decides to torture Gunnar by yanking on his catheter, which, if you've ever had the unfortunate reason to be cathed, you can imagine, you know how much it hurts. If you haven't, but you know what a catheter is, you can absolutely imagine how bad it would hurt. So, Dave, out of a possible 5 catheter yanks, what do you give the rule of Jenny Penn?
I'm giving it 2.5. And the first catheter yank is Lithgow, the second catheter yank is Rush, and the half catheter yank is Henry, because that's it. That's what you come to this movie for. And I feel like it's so personal whether you end up liking this movie or not. If you're watching this for the performances, you're going to enjoy it. If you're watching this as in a holistic way for the movie, you're not going to enjoy this thing. If you're watching this thing for social commentary, you're going to enjoy it. And if you're watching this thing for the visual aesthetic, you're not going to like this thing. So I'm split right down the middle. I can't say don't watch it, and I can't say definitely watch it. And so 2.5 to me, that's you figure it out.
Yeah, no, look, as soon as earlier when we got into talking about the cast and I said it's a 2.5 man show, that's when the light bulb went for me. And I was like, yeah, this is 2.5 catheter yanks. And it's exactly that. It's because of the performances. The only reason that Gunnar didn't get a full catheter yank for his performances, it wasn't fleshed out enough. He didn't get enough screen time to get it that extra one. This movie has a lot of flaws, but those three guys' performances are not one of them. And it did make it something where, like I said, I didn't care what happened next because the non-existent story didn't keep me involved. I cared what was happening right now because I wanted to see what these guys were doing. And so that is where this became, like you said, like a character study. That is where this idea of would this work as some sort of weird live action thing where you had to sit in how uncomfortable it was and you had to watch these things happen. And so maybe right, it is in no way any sort of pinnacle or touchstone of horror that that a lot of these outlets wanted to make it out to be. I'm glad that Shudder made this thing. I'm glad that this guy, what did I say his name was earlier?
Ashcroft,
James Ashcroft. Yeah, James Ashcroft. I'm glad that James Ashcroft wrote this and made this movie. I am, because it gave us these performances and it gave something to talk about. And it really did show that, I mean, like, let's see. Jeffrey Rush is 73 and John Lithgow is 79. I mean, these guys have still got it. These guys have 100% still got it. And yeah, I mean, if they would like to retire, I wish them nothing but the best. But if they want to make movies, I hope the two of them make 100 more together, because they were just incredible. And so, yeah, ultimately I'm going to sit right there with you at 2.5 catheter yanks.
That's perfect. So there it is. Well, I mean, it's not perfect. It's half.
It's unanimous.
Yeah, it's unanimously imperfect. There you have it. 2.5 catheter yanks for The Rule of Jenny Penn. So watch it or don't watch it. Either way, don't blame us.
Right.
For whether you enjoy it or don't.
We've given you the ups and downs. We have prepared you as best as we possibly can for this movie.
Yeah.
So if you've enjoyed the episode, if you enjoy all of our episodes, please give us a review on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen. Drop that 5-star if you really enjoy us. There's a weird new thing on Spotify where you can comment on episodes. I don't know if anybody has or not yet because they don't email us when it happens. But if you feel the need to do that, it seems like something that might break up people's algorithm a little bit. If you've been listening, if you've hung around, if you're listening to us now on your podcast app, we appreciate you guys. We know the year's been wonky with timing, life be lifing, but we've got some really great ideas for some stuff that came up. My uncle has given us some really good ideas. We recently saw that another newer one that some people have asked me if we're going to do it is streaming now. So make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms. We are at ShiverPod on all of those. You can find a link to them all at shiverpod.com, and Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and that's it. I mean, technically we're still on Twitter, but we don't use it anymore because it's just a cesspool of humanity and dog shit. So Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, that's where you'll find us at ShiverPod. Keep an eye out. We'll be letting you know what we're doing next week soon.
Absolutely. So, on behalf of all of us here at Shiver,